You guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. I appreciate you clicking the video. On this channel, I like to talk about things that are very divisive. I like to have a little bit of a conversation. And in that process, I'm more than likely going to step on a few toes. I'm going to make some people angry. We're going to go through this. It's going to be fun. The whole point of this is to have a conversation, an honest conversation, not one fueled by pure hate or emotions, just legitimate conversations, legitimate debates. And that's why I always ask that you guys tell me what you're thinking in those comments. I simply just don't expect every one of you to agree with me on everything I have to say. On the contrary, I totally expect a lot of you to maybe agree on some things and disagree on other things. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. At the end of the day, we can have some serious discussions and we can all be friends, I think. So you guys grab your favorite beverage and let's talk about if it's transphobic if you don't want to date a trans person. Now, to me, you guys, I don't care who you want to have sex with. I don't care who you want to have relationships with, as long as they're adults and they're consenting. But the idea of not wanting to date a trans person because they're trans is not transphobic. Just because somebody wants to identify as a woman, does that make them a woman? I mean, biologically speaking, you can't really say that they have all the biological parts, if you know what I'm saying. Even if you get surgeries done, it's not the same thing. And for a lot of straight men out there looking for a person that has a vagina, they're not typically looking for someone who had their vagina manufactured from their penis. And I would assume if they're straight, if a person still has their, their man parts, they're not going to want that either. Because if a man were to be with someone who has the parts, or had them reversed, in my opinion, is gay. And that's totally fine. If you're gay, cool. I'm happy for you. But to call someone transphobic because they don't want to be with a person that has a penis? Wow, that's a stretch. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I like my women without the penis. But I want to hop into this video with you guys, and I want to know what you guys have to say, and I will do a little commentary as we go through it.
So I was going to keep it really respectful. I was. But then you wanted to come into the DMs and make essentially a joke out of what I was saying, my commentary, right? If you're someone who says, hey, like, I don't find trans people or trans women attractive, I think that makes you transphobic, and here is my...
So if you don't find a trans person attractive, that makes you transphobic. I've seen some pretty convincing trans women that look very feminine, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's still a dude. It's still a guy. I don't know what to tell you. It's still a guy.
Here's my reasoning why. When you say, oh, I don't want to date a trans woman, for example, what does that mean to you? Like, genuinely think this through. Like, what does that mean to you? And it's normal to have certain preferences, but to have it be a blanket term for a group of people, a specific demographic, is a sort of ism, right? And the thing is that trans women...
It's a sort of ism. Okay. All right. I'm just checking some boxes.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And trans people look so many different types of ways. So for you to say...
Yeah, everybody looks all kinds of ways. Everybody. That's not saying a whole lot that people look different. Listen, people look different.
I'm not attracted or interested in trans people doesn't make sense.
Let me explain to you why it makes sense. Why if you're not attracted to a trans person because you're not into trans people, it's because you're not gay. You're just not gay. It's that simple. Or you are gay and you're just not into fake vaginas. It's really one or the other. It's really just a preference, right? But apparently it's an ism.
Trans person decides to medically transition or not, still makes them trans no matter what. Whether or not a trans person is early on their transitioning process, whether their goal is to pass or not, still makes them trans. Whether or not a trans woman decides to wear makeup and be more feminine presenting versus a trans person who maybe is non-binary and chooses to not be someone more feminine or masculine, or maybe...
I'm sorry, I had to pause it there. I kind of lost what she was trying to say there.
Trans people, trans women look many different types of ways. And I give the example of black women in the sense that, like, when people say, hey, I don't want to date a black woman, that's racism. So
okay, now we jumped over to racism because you don't want to date a black woman. Listen, people's skin color preference is a preference. Now, if they didn't want to date a black person because they are a black person, I understand how that can be seen as racism. But if you're not sexually into a darker complexion, you can't control that. You can't just date a black person even though your ultra preference is a fair light-skinned woman. Or vice versa. If you're really into dark complexions, you aren't just going to be like, well, I guess I'll just settle for this super white chick. It's just like anything else, it's a preference. This is the same kind of mindset that says you're fat phobic if you won't date a fat person. It's a preference. It is a feature. Granted, that feature can be changed at any point in time if they, reeled it in. But if somebody doesn't want to date you because you have a certain skin complexion, maybe you're just too light, you're too dark, that's not racism. That's just a simple preference. It's like I'm really into girls who have brown eyes. Does that make me some kind of ist? Not that I'm aware of, but that's only because they probably haven't thought of a new ist for that. But let's carry on.
sorry, point blank. And I'm going to come respectfully as a Black woman and say something that we might have experienced together is a lot of times when people say, I don't want to date Black women, they always, especially Black men, will say something that's negative. Like, oh, well, I just want to date Black women because I think they're loud. I think they're ghetto. I think that they, they're not submissive as XYZ other race. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, did she say, can I go back on that? She says Black men don't want to date Black women because of these things. Did I hear that right?
Something that we might have experienced together is a lot of times when people say, I don't want to date Black women, they always, especially Black men, will say something that's negative. Like,
so Black men are saying this and it's still racist? If a Black man says, I don't want to date Black women because they're loud or X, Y, and Z, that's still racist? Color me confused. I have no idea what to make of that. That's insane.
I want to date Black women because I think they're loud. I think they're ghetto. I think that they, they're not submissive as XYZ other race. You know what I'm saying? That happens all the time. And we know that's bullshit because it's like you just making up stereotypes and negatively associated stereotypes against Black women, and you're blanking terming that as if all Black women are this monolith of being loud, ghetto women, uneducated women. And that's just not, first of all, that's not even true. Black women have different aesthetics. For example, you can have Black women who are alt. You can have Black women who are glamorous and high femmes. You can have Black women who look like.
And you can do all that with white women too. But you know what you can't change about a Black woman and a white woman? Their specific skin tone. It has nothing to do with culture, personality, or anything like that. It's just a preference on wanting to be with someone who's darker complexion or lighter complexion. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the culture behind this skin color. Maybe it's just something you're not super into. It doesn't make you racist because you have a preference on who you want to date. What would make you racist is if you started treating people terribly because of those things. You started treating them as if they're lesser than because of those features. But if you don't want to date someone because they're too light skinned or too dark skinned and it's just not your preference, that's not racism. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think most people tie their entire identity into their skin color. I think that's ridiculous too. Now, it being a part of your identity is one thing, but if you're making it your entire identity, I don't want to be around any of you people. I don't care if you're white, Black, or whatever. If your skin color or your sexual preferences or whatever it may be is your entire personality, you are probably a pretty terrible person, or at the very least extremely annoying. So yeah, I don't want anything to do with any of that from any side. All right, so that's pretty much the video. If you want to date a guy who looks like a woman, great, you do you, baby, you do you. But to say I'm transphobic because I want to be with a woman who has, a natural God-given vagina, you were just completely unreasonable. There are plenty of guys out there who prefer their women to have penises, I guess, but that's not for me, and that's not for the majority of straight men. If that's your thing, cool, but don't call people transphobic because they don't want to do what it is you are doing. If they have a preference on a person, whether it be skin tone or it be height or it be weight or penis, whatever, that's okay. That's fine. We are allowed to like what we like, and people shouldn't be labeled transphobic or racist because they don't want to date somebody of a certain skin tone because it's just not what they're into sexually, or they don't want to date someone who has a penis because, well, they're not gay. The only thing that makes it transphobic is if you just purely hate them for it and you ridicule them for it. And that's the same thing for race. If you're going to treat someone from a different color as less than, but if you just don't want to date someone because you're more into, fairer skinned people, that's not racism. That's just a preference. At this point, I'm waiting because I think in the next 5 years, people who have giant pancake nipples are going to develop some kind of ism because you won't date them because they have giant saucer nipples. You guys, at the end of the day, you can't really control what you're attracted to. Doesn't mean you should go out of your way and be a complete asshole to these people, but when it comes to sexual things, when it comes to relationship things, you can't control that. That just kind of evolves over time, and God knows what else is sprinkled in there, but I don't think it's hate. I don't think it's a phobia or a ism. But of course, tell me what you guys think in those comments down below. Do you think it's transphobic because a person doesn't want to date a person who has the parts that you don't want sexually? I literally cannot wait to read the hate comments this time. But as always, you guys, don't forget to like or dislike this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you hopefully get notified every time I post a new video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.